Yeah.
And we are live. Looks exactly the same as it did when we weren't live.
Play your song.
So, well, I'm going to open today's, for those of you that are watching or will watch, I'm going to open it up with a little bit of music to set the tone for the conversation that I'm going to have with my friend Diana Blackwelder.
All my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye.
That was your kitty cats telling you goodbye.
Dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could cry. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go.
Here we go.
I'm leaving on a jet plane.
Don't know when I'll be back again.
Oh, babe, I hate
All righty.
Change it over to where you can see the comments.
Okay. How do I do
Over
that?
on the right side.
Oh, comments. Okay. So that was Peter, Paul, and Mary singing their famous song, Leaving on a Jet Plane. And the reason why we did that is because we have a very special guest, a very good friend, Diana Blackwelder. And let me just read a little bit about this individual. And if you don't go, wow, well, you know, Diana Blackwelder. She was a MS systems engineer and a BS computer science. She was diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's disease in 2017 at the age of 55, when in the prime of her professional career as an IT systems integration engineer. Wow. Can you say overachiever? Yes. Diana continues to successfully live alone in Washington, D.C. She provides care for her two pet cats. She travels internationally and advocates for the betterment of lives of those living with multiple cognitive disabilities caused by dementia. Diana is a volunteer researcher at the University of Maryland, an active member of the National Center on Advancing Person-Centered Practices and Systems, founding board member and treasurer for the National Council of Dementia Minds, and board member and treasurer for Dementia Alliance International. She also consults to the Smithsonian and U.S. Botanical Garden access programs for people living with dementia. Whew. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Time's up. And every time I read about your life and what you have accomplished, it astounds me. And knowing you for the past couple of years, you've never really slowed down a whole bunch, and that to me is just awesome. So
Let
I
Diana know that Evan Holler is saying good morning to her
okay,
from the Alzheimer's Association,
right.
and Brenda Roberts from the Michigan Assisted Living Association saying hi,
Oh,
and Linda Everman from the Linda Don team in Alabama is saying hi.
you got it. You got your groupies.
Yeah, my fan club's on.
Yeah, if I can only figure out a way to delete Brenda, I don't really know. Do you know her?
Never
I'm not,
heard the bum.
somebody snuck in. So, but anyway, we're going to talk today about traveling alone with dementia, because those of us that advocate And if it's a short trip, then yeah, we can take a car, or, you know, get a ride or whatever. But when we have to go to a different location, sometimes an international location, for those of us that don't have a care partner, you basically have to fly by yourself. And that brings us to the topic that we're doing today, and that is traveling alone with dementia. Because Diana, you don't have a care partner per se, but you know, we say your kitty cats are your care partners, but you know, without them, you know, it would be your world would be a little bit different, because they play such a big part in your life. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I like to think of it as that I don't have a care partner. I have a village. I love that village term. You know, my kitty cats help because they have an amazing sense of time. And they have no sense of daylight savings time either, by the way. So when it's time for their morning breakfast, when it's time for their evening snack, they tell me, and they get my attention. And so it tells me it's time for me to have my morning breakfast and my morning meds. And it tells me it's time to have my evening dinner and my evening meds. So I don't have Maureen going, "Did you take your meds today, Diane?" I have, or Diana.
She'll call you.
I have my kitty cats going, meow, 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 meow. Feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. And when I go in the kitchen and feed them, you know, I have the visual cues. I have the stuff sitting around. So anyway, they're part of my village, but part of my village is you guys. It's a couple of really good, really good friends of mine. And through the use of technology, I can stay in touch with them even though they're not physically present.
There you go. Well, we're happy to be in that number. So thank you. So let's talk about your recent trip. Let's just say it was one to remember. You know, you've heard me talk about, you know, things that happened when I traveled alone. But this time you traveled by yourself. Start us out and tell us the story.
Sure. So okay, well, we all know we're still in the tail end of a pandemic.
Right.
And living alone, and being immune compromised, I was super careful. So I spent over a year pretty much very isolated in my condo with my two kitties, only running very brief errands, and going for lots and lots of walks here in Washington, D.C., where I live. So after I was vaccinated in March and the numbers started going down, the Delta variant didn't exist yet, I booked a flight to meet a friend in San Diego, California. Now I live in Washington, D.C. on the other side of the U.S. So I booked a flight to go visit a friend in San Diego, California, and stay at her friend's house and spend a week. And so I hopped on the plane and flew myself there. Now I made a lot of compensations because over the years, I've learned that there are certain things that work and certain things that don't work when I travel. I spend about a week preparing. I mean, that's the hard preparing for the trip, the figuring out what I'm going to bring, what needs to be brought. And having not traveled in over a year, that was, and I'm sure everyone experiences this when they take their first trip after, you know, not traveling for a while. It's like, what am I supposed to bring? What, you know, do I bring, you know, you have to literally think of things like toothbrushes and you know, everything that you just sort of have forgotten about. But luckily for me, I also had a list left over from all of my prior travels, and so I referenced that list, and that was really useful. But the first interesting thing that happened was I had a very early morning flight, so I was at the airport at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm flying out of a small Reagan National Airport that I'm very familiar with. And I need to check a bag. Now I fly first class, so I get to jump in the uncrowded sky priority lane. And that's one of the reasons I do that, is to keep my cognitive wits about me. Because all of that crowds and noise and commotion and a long line, well, by the time I get through the line, I forget what I'm in the line for.
Right.
So I bebop up to the sky priority lane, and there's two people in front of me, and it's a fairly long wait because there's some problem with the person that's at the counter. And so another agent comes up to the person behind me and is telling him that, oh, you can go over here, and he's pointing, she's pointing over there to this crowd. You can go over there. You can just go straight up, no waiting. If you're just checking a bag. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that looks easy. And then I looked at the crowd, and then I said, yeah, no. I think I'll just wait. So anyhow, I'm standing there waiting, and the gal calls me. The gal from the next counter over calls me over, and luckily she has a very prominent voice, so she was able to get my attention, because I am so hyper focused on what I'm supposed to be doing that I'm hyper focused on that agent right in front of me. This is the agent I'm supposed to pay attention to. But anyhow, she got my attention. So that was the first trigger, that it's just these little tiny things that will just send us for a loop and break us out of our comfort, not just comfort zone, but our functioning zone.
Right.
So I go over to her. Now the brain's already starting to spin because everything's different. It's not like I'm prepared for. So now I'm starting to have to function more dynamically. And I don't do well. It's comedy. It's a comedy of errors.
You were at the right gate to begin with, and then all of a sudden you get transferred over to another gate with somebody that you're not familiar with, and then I can understand that.
Yep.
I can understand that.
Yep. So she says, give me your, let me see your ID. And I'm like, what am I supposed to show you? I'm trying to give her my phone. Finally, I hand her my passport, because I travel with my passport because it's harder to lose than my driver license. And I always travel with two IDs in separate containers, so that I will always have an ID to get back home in case I lose one. So that's just another mitigating thing that I do.
Right.
Well, anyway, we get all of this, and she's got my bag checked. Now she's getting ready to put the tag on the bag, and then I'm supposed to take the bag over to the bag drop-off area. Well, I have completely forgotten about that process, and my brain's still thinking she's going to take this bag. She's got everything. And I physically start to leave the counter, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right. And then I come back to the counter, and but no, I'm supposed to leave. And I'm physically waffling back and forth. I didn't even realize this until after the fact. Well, the gate agent picked up on that, and I guess it was, a lot of us, it's the first time we've flown in a long time. It was really early in the morning, and she picked up on, because I haven't told her that I have dementia or anything. She just thinks I'm a flying customer, and she picked up on that, and she so deftly, just the way she talked, the words she used, how slow she spoke. I mean, she didn't speak really slow. She just spoke really slow and really clearly. You stay here. I will put the tag on the bag, and then you will take the bag over there. And then she's pointing where I'm supposed to go, and you drop the bag off at security, and then you can go to your gate. And she said that twice. And that was just enough that it threw a wrench in the short circuit that my brain was doing, and I was able to stop doing this and figure out what to do. And then I just kept repeating to myself her instructions so that I could actually manage to finish doing what I was supposed to do. And then I was back off to normal. But I think what I really wanted to share with folks about that was that it takes something so little and so innocuous that as a care partner or someone traveling with someone with dementia, you're not going to pick up on these things, and you're not expected to pick up on these things. Instead, what you've got to do is you've got to look at the cues that the person with dementia is sending you, just like that Delta agent. Even though she didn't know I had dementia, she saw the physical cues. I probably had this confused look on my face. I was physically, teetering. You could tell I couldn't tell what I was supposed to do. You pick up on those physical cues, and then you just create a calming, instructive environment, and that sets us straight again. And that's kind of like an insight that I learned just by doing that. So, God, Brian, I know I'm talking like nobody's business, but you know me, I talk like crazy anyway.
No.
So
no,
what kind of
we don't know that about you at all.
Yeah, well, that's what makes me a good advocate, I guess, is because I talk and I'm willing to share so many of those details because right now I can still recognize some of them. It might be after the fact, but I can still recognize some of them. And I just have this desire to share with everybody that will listen so that it might help someone else either figure out how to help others with dementia and even to help people with dementia to feel more comfortable when they're experiencing something similar, that it's okay, you will get through it. Don't let it scare the crap out of you.
Right. All right. So you get on the plane and you fly from one coast to, well, kind of all the way across the country. You go to California, you enjoyed yourself, you had a great time, but you also stayed in a house that you had never been before. How was that experience?
Well, that I like to say, especially the first couple of days, I laughed at myself so often, and even my friend laughed with me, because of it's just completely unexpected things that I would do. So I live in a one-story, 1,300 square foot condominium. And their house that I was staying at is 2 stories with all of the bedrooms upstairs and significantly bigger. And the stairs are fairly steep. And when you're going upstairs, when you first hit the first stairs, there's railings on both sides. But then after 3 stairs, there's only railing on one side. And let me see, going up, it's on the left side. So because of the stairs, and you're always carrying something in your hands, either up or down.
Right.
Well, I kept putting the stuff in the wrong hand. I'd have stuff in my left hand, and then I'd have to move it to hang on to the railing, because with my vision issues with the dementia, I do not navigate stairs without my hand at least over the railing. And that's just a prevention mechanism. So I kept having to move it. And I was like, why can't, after a day, I was like, why can't I remember which hand to put my stuff in to go up the stairs? On day 2, it dawned on me. It took me 2 days to figure this out. When you're going up the stairs, the railing is on the left. And when you're coming down the stairs, the railing is on your right. So it literally took me 2 days to figure that out. Because I thought, oh, I got this. Just remember left, left, left. And I was, I had left drilled in my brain, but half the time I was wrong and I couldn't figure it out.
And it's people that do not have a dementia related illness, they would have just ran up the stairs and probably didn't even have to hold on to a railing or anything. When I walk like down the ramp or downstairs or upstairs, I have one hand on the railing and the other hand on Maureen.
Mm-hmm.
So, we go up and do this together, and I don't even think about it anymore. I mean, it's just something that we do. I can't imagine going someplace that you've never been before and try to navigate, a different house and railings and stairs and all that kind of stuff. So
Return us home.
we should have had a camera there just to kind of see. So, all right. So you spent your time, and what part of California were you in?
Oh, gorgeous San Diego.
San Diego. I've been there. Once.
La Jolla.
So yeah, and to La Jolla also to see the wonderful smelling seals. Whew. Anyway, okay. So now it's time to go home, and that's where the story that you're about to tell is going to be the reason why we have you on today.
Oh yeah, because that parts of that I posted on Facebook and shared with folks. I didn't post the stairs issue. Well, so here I am. I'm thinking I'm being all smart. Best laid plans of mice and men, right?
Yeah.
I went ahead and chose the early morning flight from San Diego home. So because it was scheduled to get me home just before 6 p.m. at night. And that would get me home before I exhausted all my cognitive energy. It would get me home in the daylight so things didn't look different. It would get me home when the metro system was still running. And for me to take the metro from the airport to my house is easier than grabbing an Uber. And so I thought, okay, all is good. And I don't book the last flight of the day. I learned that traveling for business. The odds of you spending the night in a hotel or the night in the airport are just too great if you book the last flight of the day. Now, if you want to get bumped and get extra miles or money for being bumped, book the last flight of the day because they'll always ask for volunteers to get bumped.
Right.
These things I've learned over my life. I don't even think about. So anyway, I think everything's all good, even though I'm running on less sleep than normal because, I've got to be at the airport at like 5:30 in the morning. I'm good. The flight from San Diego to Detroit is basically uneventful, which I absolutely love is uneventful trips. And the connecting flight from Detroit to DC seems uneventful. I look out the window. I mean, I've got an aisle seat, but I look out the window and I can see DC. DC has a very prominent appearance with all of the monuments and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, woohoo, we're almost home. We were running a little behind schedule just because we had a lot of headwinds, but other than that, like 15 minutes, no big deal. And then the pilot comes over the loudspeaker and says, "I'm sorry, folks." And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. We're going to divert to Norfolk, Virginia, a 3.5-hour drive away from the Reagan National DC Airport, due to weather. And I'm thinking, all right, no big deal. We're going to divert to Norfolk. You know, by the time we get to Norfolk, the weather will be cleared. We'll turn around, or we'll get to Norfolk, we'll land, and, you know, they'll add a little fuel to the plane, and we'll just get home a little later. We land in Norfolk, and they tell us we're going to have to deboard and take our bags. And as soon as we get deboarded, they tell us that the pilot is the flight crew has reached their maximum hours, and so they're going to have to try to find a new flight crew. And I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. Lord. This is not good. And then it turns to, you need to go collect your bags. We've ordered some charter buses, and we're going to bus you 3.5 hours back to Reagan Airport.
Wow. Now
it's pushing 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And you add 3.5 hours onto that, and, you know, you're pushing 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
After we collected the bags, and now I'm getting tired. And there was no place to get dinner in the airport. So I got a V8, you know, the little snack areas was all that was open. So I got a V8 to at least get some veggies in me. Because it's like 7 o'clock at night now. And I know I'm not going to get home anytime soon. Well, anyway, it was just a lot of cognitive exhaustion, navigating the long trek to the baggage claim, getting my bags, checking and making sure, okay, I have all of the bags I'm supposed to have on me. And now where do I go to meet this charter bus? And then it was super hot outside. So then I come back inside, and I'm thinking, you know, 3.5 hour charter bus. We're going to be packed on that bus. I fly first class for a number of reasons. I have a hard time finding my seat. All of the people and the noise and commotion around me just completely exhausts me. It's a comfortable seat. It's super short walk to the bathroom. I don't get lost getting to the bathroom on the plane or getting back to my seat on the plane. All of these accommodations are now not going to be there for me. This is going to be a free-for-all to get on that charter bus. We've got kids on this plane that are already screaming, and I can just think, okay, 3.5 hours at night on a bus, bouncing around. Hopefully we don't get stuck in traffic with kids screaming, one bathroom at the back of the bus that we're all going to be sharing. And then they're going to drop us off, God knows where, at Reagan Airport in a different location than I'm used to. And I'm going to have to figure out how to collect all of my stuff at midnight. And now the metro is going to be closed. So I'm going to have to find where I go to hail an Uber from wherever they drop us off on the bus. And then all 100 of us are going to be hailing an Uber at the same time. So there's going to be a long wait for the Uber. And I thought, oh God, what am I setting myself up for? I knew I'd be spent.
What you're talking about, that would automatically send me into Rain Man mode. Okay.
Well,
whenever I get anxious and I don't realize I'm doing it. If I'm standing up, I start rocking back and forth. And Maureen will just take my arm and she says, "Are you okay?" And I don't realize why she's asking me if I'm okay. But yeah, I would have been rocking back and forth. But different people handle their dementia in a different way. And that's your living proof. We're just two people, but
Mhm.
we handle things a little bit different.
Yeah, you handle it differently. Well, and
Yeah.
I instinctively fall into the mode of just gut it out, follow the rules and get through it. But I have learned the hard way. And you know, we learn from our failures the best, right? I have learned the hard way that doesn't work so well for me anymore. Because at some point my brain ceases to function well enough for me to function on my own. And I get myself into trouble. But I know that. And luckily, very luckily, it was taking a couple of hours total for those charter buses to arrive. And that gave me enough time to realize all of these things that I just told you about. Oh, look what I'm setting myself up for, because I was just following, charging ahead. And that gave me that time to think about what was happening and what I was doing and what I was setting myself up for. So then I made the first stupid decision, but fate intervened. I headed off to the rental car counters, and I'm like, I know I don't know my way to home from here, but I got GPS. And I'd rather drive myself home, because I can still drive. I'd rather drive myself home than get stuck on a charter bus for 3.5+ hours.
Right. With all these other people.
But fate intervened, and luckily all of the rental car companies, because I checked all of them, had no one-way rentals available.
Oh, good
Thank
Lord.
God. Thank God they didn't have any one-way rent, because I would have rented a car and God knows what would have happened to me trying to drive when I was already cognitively exhausted. 3.5 hours on roads I'm not familiar with. And so then I'm going, okay, I need to find a Delta agent and tell them this is not going to work. They're going to have to think of something for me. At this point, I knew I needed to reach out to somebody else for help. So I called Delta, because I don't see a Delta agent anywhere. I called Delta, and the queue for customer support is 1.5 hours. I'm like, oh shit, the buses will be here before then. I have to make a decision when those buses arrive. Get on the bus or don't get on the bus. Because that's a, you know, those are divergent paths. And I'm like, oh crap. And so I'm doubting my abilities now. I am feeling rushed to make a decision, but some of the techniques that a cognitive therapist taught me early on in this disease, I still remember. And thank God I remembered them. I was like, okay, extricate yourself from this situation. Physically remove yourself from the crowd, find a cool place, and think about it. And I did. And I said, I have to find a Delta agent, whether the buses come or not. I have to get help. And so I was like, that means I'm going to have to go back up to the airport from baggage claim and find an agent in this tiny airport that's almost closed down now because it's 7:00 at night. And luckily, as I was panning the room one last time, I saw this fellow. He wasn't completely in uniform, but he had the Delta wings on his clothes. And I hit him up and I said, you know, in a very polite way, excuse me, do you work for Delta? And he said, well, I do, but. And I was like, oh God. But then he said, but I was on the plane with you. So he was just, you know, like in the jump seat on the plane.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, I just need help finding a Delta agent. And he said, oh, I can help you with that. And he looked around and he says, and he pointed me to this little side room off of baggage claim and directed me with, you know, look at this sign and look at that sign and go right in there. And there's Delta agents in there. And so I did. And the first thing I told the Delta agent was, because I know they were getting hit up by all the passengers with, you know, when's the bus going to arrive? When's the bus going to arrive? Right.
Right.
And I didn't want, and I knew I just knew they were going to be assuming that's what I was doing. So the first thing I told them was, you know, very nicely in a calm, you know, not demanding voice, because I can just imagine what they were dealing with. I said, I was on that flight that was diverted from DC. I have a cognitive disability. I'm traveling solo, and I don't think I have the cognitive reserves left to manage getting home safely once the buses drop us off at DC airport. And I was, fate intervened again, and I got a guardian angel with Delta. I even took a selfie of her with me. And she's the first person that's ever asked for a selfie that was just so happy for the help. But she figured it out for me, and there's no way I could have ever figured this out, because she was literally using her landline phone at the desk and her personal cell phone, calling to try and find a hotel that had a room. Because in Norfolk, Virginia, that's where the Navy ships come aboard. And apparently multiple Navy ships had recently docked, and we had multiple planes diverted to Norfolk. And so there were no rooms. So every hotel she reached, no rooms, not a single room. Good she Lord. Finally found one hotel that had one last room, but they didn't take Delta vouchers. Oh. And she said, they don't take Delta vouchers. Are you willing? Do you want to pay for it yourself? And I said, how much is it? She asked. It was $200 plus tax. I said, $200 for my safety? That's a small price to pay. So we got the hotel room booked, and then she got to working with Delta to find me a flight home the next day. And she gave me a number of options and helped, and her and this other agent helped me kind of talk through the pros and cons of the different flight options. Because the first flight option that she gave me was a direct flight on American at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, oh God, it's already 9 something at night. I need some rest. Do you have something later? She said, well, I've got a 10 a.m. On Delta, but you got to fly to Atlanta first. So I got to fly from Norfolk, Virginia down south to Atlanta to take a connection from Atlanta back to DC. And I know the Atlanta airport, and I'm pretty good at navigating, but it's hard on me cognitively. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I'm getting up at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning to catch my flight. But anyway, she got me all set up. She very meticulously walked me through how to get to the shuttle to the hotel. And then as I made notes on paper, what time I needed to be at the airport and where I needed to go to get my boarding pass, because all I had was this little voucher thing from Delta. It wasn't a boarding pass. And she gave me just enough information that I was all set. And it got me through. And at the same time, all of this, I was also texting my friend, who's also a great cognitive support for me, who was still in San Diego because she was staying longer than I did. I was texting her, and she reminded me, well, you're not going to be home in time. What about your cats? Because my cats take medicine and have to have medicine twice a day. And because by then I forgot about my kid cats. So then while we had time.
Yes, temporarily.
Temporarily. While we had time, I was able to text a friend that lives in the building that has the key to my apartment. That's another fail-safe I have, is I have a friend that can take care of my kitties. And he has a key to my apartment. So I just texted him, and he was in town, and he just, came up and looked after my kitties for me. So they were good to go. I mean, it wouldn't have killed them. They're not on, insulin or anything like that. They're just on glucosamine, chondroitin, and surprisingly enough, some CBD oil, for their, one of them's got arthritis. So yeah, that's a long story, but I felt like I wanted to share, and thank you, Brian and Maureen, for giving me the opportunity to share some of these details, because I'm sure that within those details is key information that's, unique to other individuals that are either traveling or considering traveling, either alone or with someone, that will be of use. And I think the biggest takeaway is what my cognitive therapist taught me when she actually went with me to navigate somewhere, because I was starting to have difficulty navigating on foot around DC in areas I know, but like the back of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
But what the cognitive therapist did was she observed from me what I was doing well and where I was not doing things so well. And then she trained me how to compensate for that. And the biggest takeaway is to separate yourself physically from the maddening crowd, and take that time you need to compose yourself. Even if you have to take a piece of paper and write down, okay, here's my biggest priority, what I've got to get done. Now, how do I get from here to there? And forget about everything else. I need to get from here to there and focus on that. But because we can't process all of that information and data anymore.
Right.
So you have to just be brutal at cutting it down to just what you absolutely positively have to do. Like, my priority was getting home safely, not quickly, not conveniently, but safely. And that was what I communicated to the Delta agent. I need to get home safe.
Right.
And they made sure I got home safe.
That's awesome. I mean, I had an experience at one point with a different airline, which I have professed that I would never fly on that airline ever again. But when you find an airline that you've had a great relationship with, that that you can go to them and they're going to treat you nicely.
Mm-hmm.
That's the airlines that we fly on, because it's easier, and they seem to understand people like you and I a lot better than other airlines do.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a program that is going through several countries, including the United States, called the DAISY Project, where airport employees are being trained. And it's something that I think all airports should mandatorily have to do.
It's a badge that you wear that has a daisy on it. So they recognize that, and they help, whether or not they'll come up to you and say, is there anything that you need, or things of that nature. So
I believe they call it, so it's, the lanyard is green and it has yellow daisies on it, and it represents a hidden disability, not just dementia or a cognitive disability, but a hidden disability. And I don't know if we have time, but there's just one little quick story. So I was flying back on American, and I wasn't sure they had a first class cabin, and I know I have difficulties finding my seat. So I walked up to the gate right away, even though I was in the first boarding group. And I said, is this where I stand if I need assistance on the plane? And that gate agent gave me a look like she didn't believe me. And she said, who needs assistance? And I said, me, I have a cognitive disability. And when the other agent that she, called over to help guide me to my seat, when I said I need help finding my seat, because I will sit in the wrong seat no matter how hard I try. And I've flown umpteen times, but I just can't figure it out anymore. She takes me down. Now I'm in seat 4A or 4D or whatever, anyhow, the aisle seat in row 4. She walks me slowly down the aisle like I'm some child. And she stops at row 2. And she's she's showing me the icons and she's saying, now this is row 2 and this is your aisle seat.
Oh,
and by the
Lord.
time she said, this is your aisle seat, I'm ready to sit down. And then she says, oh no, you're in 4.
Well,
she thinks, she doesn't understand cognitive disability. You're not going to teach, if I've already told you I can't figure out the seats, you're not going to teach me how to figure them out. I flew for business my entire life. If I am now having difficulty finding the right seat and the right, whether it's the aisle or the window,
yeah,
it's not because I don't know the process. It's because I can't do it anymore.
And just like you, that's the reason why I don't fly on that airline anymore. That's the one that I had a great experience with.
Likewise.
And,
likewise.
Yeah.
I've had bad experiences before, and so I lean heavily on Delta now.
Delta and Southwest are the two.
Southwest. Yes, they're great.
I do want to mention something. Linda Everman, who is a good friend of ours, she said that Mr. Rogers, I'm trying to find. Oh yeah, he says his quote was, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping."
That is so true.
And that's the truth. You're not going to get anything because you and I don't look like we have dementia.
No.
and on a good day, we can breeze through everything. And then there's other days where things happen and kind of.
The worst experience you and I ever had on an airplane, it was me and how I was acting that got us the help. It wasn't that you looked like you needed help. It was me.
It was her. Yeah.
I was just beyond. And we had a gentleman who was a retired fire captain and at 9/11, and he was our champion that day. I was so grateful for him.
He went up to the desk and told them all about, because we spent like, I don't know how many hours.
Doesn't matter. Just go.
But he took care of everything. And then when they opened the doors, he said he physically got in front of us and he said, "Stay on me." And so we just got right behind him and we went on, because he was a big dude, So, but I want to say thank you so much for joining us, because I think what you have said is going to hopefully help a lot of people, either with a dementia-related illness or some type of other illness that they have that can't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have taught us all a lesson in how to work towards getting
independent.
Independently getting to where you're going to go.
Yeah.
And so there you go.
I hope so. This way I can kind of like multiply the benefits of what I'm learning as I go, so that others don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can just leverage what's already been done. And that makes me think, maybe we should send this recording to the airlines and they could incorporate bits of it in their training.
Well, Linda Everman put the link for the DAISY project in the comments. I think they could probably get it to all of the airlines for us. So we will do that.
Great. Well, again, thank you both, Maureen and Brian, for what you all do to break the stigmas and make life better for all of us living with disabilities.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. It's our pleasure. And thank you, the watchers.
Yes.
And thank you for the comments and so forth. So
we'll see you next week
right here on We Are Dementia Strong, sponsored by caregiversupportandresources.com, your place to go in case you need any type of information regarding support and resources. And what? And what?
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I don't know what I'm saying. So I'm just reading stuff. It's Maureen. It's Maureen. She's caregiver and support and resources. So she knows a hell of a lot more than I do. So anyway,
Thanks,
thank you, Diane.
Thank you all.
And
Bye.
have a great day.
End it up on the top right.